Hey, Soul Stories fam. We're about to begin a brand new love journey. Please comment on where you're watching from so we can see that our Soul Stories family is all around the world. London, a December night so cold even breaths turned into white smoke. From the third floor balcony of the Bennett estate, Rosalie Leah Bennett looked down at the garden glittering with golden lights, where her own engagement party was in full swing. Below, laughter mingled with the clinking of glasses. Among the crowd in suits and ball gowns, people talked about the deal of the century between Bennett Winery and Montgomery Holdings, as if love were unnecessary. Profit and strategy were enough. Absolutely perfect, someone said. Two legendary families, and her, the fiancé of CEO Montgomery, the most powerful man in London. Leah heard every word, and the corner of her lips lifted, a smile cold and weary. To others, she was the ideal Bennett daughter. Oxford graduate, fluent in 3 languages, beautiful and graceful. But no one knew she was slowly dying inside this suffocating white lace dress. The press called Alexander Montgomery the cold wolf of the city. A young, sharp, emotionless CEO who didn't believe in love and who once made an entire business world tremble. Rumor had it he bankrupted a rival company over a single wrong handshake. And now her father wanted her to become that man's wife. Leah took a deep breath, her hand tightening on the railing until her knuckles turned white. You should be proud, her mother's voice came from behind. Not every girl gets chosen. Gets chosen or gets picked, mother. Mrs. Bennett frowned slightly, adjusting her daughter's dress strap as if fixing a display piece. Leah, in this world, the winner isn't the one who loves best, but the one who shakes hands with the right person. Pity? I don't feel like shaking anyone's hand. The reply made her mother freeze. But before she could respond, Leah smiled softly, the polite smile she'd been trained to wear since childhood, and walked away. She left the party while the crowd was still toasting her happiness. Outside, London rain began to fall, icy drops landing on her hair, her shoulders, and the heart that was about to burst. Her heels clicked against the cobblestone sidewalk, steady and defiant. Every step was a reminder that she was running from a life already pre-written. No destination, no umbrella, only the chill of the night and the faint burn of alcohol still lingering in her throat. Then a faint purple neon glow appeared from a small sign. Velvet Hour. A bar tucked away on an old street, its fogged glass windows glowing with warmth. Inside, slow jazz hummed, and the scent of whiskey and oak wrapped around her like an unexpected embrace. She stepped in, soaked, hair tousled, dark strands clinging to her cheeks. The bartender looked surprised but only nodded without a word. The strongest whiskey you have, she rasped. Double or single? Triple if possible. The amber liquid slid toward her, shimmering under golden light, beautiful and deceitful, just like the thing called family love. She took a large gulp. The burn scorched her throat. Damn, she muttered. At least it's honest. Honest enough to make you forget the pain? A deep male voice beside her, laced with quiet amusement. Leah turned. The man at the next seat was idly swirling his drink, the light catching in his deep ocean blue eyes. Cold, mesmerizing. A black shirt, sleeves rolled up, with strong veins tracing his wrist. A silver watch gleamed dangerously. I don't like being eavesdropped on, she said, arching an eyebrow. I wasn't eavesdropping. I was observing. You look like someone trying to forget a person. Wrong. She clinked her glass lightly, eyes fixed on nothing. I'm trying to forget myself. He chuckled, low and rich. Interesting. But in my experience, people who want to forget themselves are the ones who've never truly lived. And you? I'm different. I've lived just enough to watch others get drunk. Leah gave a half smile. You're the kind who preaches philosophy in bars, huh? No, I just think it's a waste for a beautiful woman to drink alone on a rainy night. No need to pity me. I'm celebrating my wedding. Brides usually smile. They don't hide in bars. She lifted her glass, eyes sharper now. Because the groom is a man I've never met, and they say he's the devil in disguise. He tilted his head, a slow smile curving his lips. Sounds intriguing. And what do you plan to do about this devilish fiancé? I'm not sure. Maybe Betrayed destiny for once. Silence lingered. Rain hammered softly against the window like a heartbeat. Leah swirled her drink, her voice husky as she bit her lip. If fate forces me to marry a devil, then at least I'll choose an angel to sin with first. The man raised an eyebrow, that crooked smile deepening, his gaze so intense it made her pulse skip. Careful, he murmured. You're talking to a devil dressed like an angel. The Jazz in Velvet Hour shifted to an old rendition of Fly Me to the Moon, smoke curling lazily through the dim air like a hazy velvet curtain. Leah leaned her elbow against the bar counter, her eyes slightly blurred with alcohol but still gleaming with the defiance of someone exhausted by life. The man beside her, with deep ocean blue eyes, tilted his glass of whiskey, watching the ripples in the amber liquid as if they held all the answers in the world. I don't know your name yet, Leah said, her voice tinged with husky weariness. I don't know yours either, he replied, smiling faintly. That makes us even. So why not break the balance? If I tell you my real name, would you believe me? She glanced at him over the rim of her glass, one eyebrow raised. Try me. He set his glass down, leaned back slightly, and said in a low, steady tone, Call me Alex. Leah let out a soft laugh, the kind that carried both intoxication and bitterness. Alex? That's the same name as the fiancé I despise most in all of London. Are you trying to tease me? No, but maybe fate has a sense of humor. If fate has a sense of humor, I'd like to throw it in the trash. He laughed, the kind of laugh that made it hard to tell whether it was genuine or part of a dangerous game. I don't think I should be laughing when a future bride is sitting in a bar at midnight. I'm not a bride. I'm just the merchandise my parents traded for a contract. Her voice caught slightly. She clinked her glass and emptied the last drop. Alex tilted his head, observing her. No one should speak of sad things in such a beautiful voice. And you shouldn't say teasing things with eyes like that. They looked at each other. The warm light glowed on his face. Sharp, cold, and yet somehow gentle. A brief silence. Only the sound of rain tapping against the window remained. What are you doing here? She asked, observing. Really? Really? I'm observing how a beautiful woman drinks as if she's trying to escape the world. She gave a wry laugh. And you? Trying to save it, I suppose. No, I just like watching someone dare to do what I can't. His answer silenced her. For a man like him, rich, confident, charming, it was an odd confession. Time slowed. They talked about everything. Coffee, jazz, their mutual dislike for roses, the time he lost a watch in Paris. He didn't pry. He didn't pity. He just listened. Something she'd rarely experienced. After a few more glasses of whiskey, Leah's cheeks flushed pink. Resting her chin in her hand, she looked straight at him. You know, I'd rather give tonight to a stranger than let him have it. The air froze. Alex blinked, his voice dropping low. That sounds like a dangerous and fascinating offer. Think of it as revenge on fate. Are you sure? Leah gave a faint smile, nodding, though her voice trembled as if she didn't quite believe herself. Sure. He looked at her for a long time. In the dim light, his blue eyes glimmered with something deeper than whiskey. Then, he stood, pulled out his wallet, and left a few bills on the counter. If fate wants to play, let's play until the night ends. She smiled faintly, but as she tried to stand, the alcohol hit her hard and her head spun. Oh, God, Leah stumbled, and her lips brushed against his. He caught her in time. The scent of whiskey and perfume mingled as her heartbeat raced wildly. You really are a beautiful mess with a terrible drinking habit. And you're a stranger who knows how to take advantage of a moment. She tried to say more, but her eyelids grew heavy. A second later, she drifted asleep in his arms. Breathing softly, her face serene. He bent down, smiling faintly, his voice low enough for only the rain outside to hear. Sleep well, Rosalie Bennett. For the first time in years, fate has made me smile. The next morning, the first light of London slipped through the hotel curtains. Leah awoke in an unfamiliar room, still wearing the dress from last night. On the table sat a glass of water and a note written in black ink. Drink this before you face your world again. She frowned slightly, glancing around. The room was empty. Before she left, She didn't know that from the 12th floor window of the hotel, the man from last night stood looking down at the street, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, a cup of coffee in hand. "See you soon, Mrs. Montgomery." He smiled, eyes as blue and calm as the London fog, serene yet holding a secret she would soon have to face. A week later, London's sky hung gray and heavy, as if it too shared Leah's frustration. She sat stiffly in her family's luxury car, fingers clutching the edge of her dress, her chest weighed down by dread. Outside, the trees along Mayfair Avenue glistened with last night's rain, fallen leaves rolling silently across the wet pavement, quiet and forlorn, just like her mood. "Sweetheart, all you need to do today is smile. Don't say too much," her mother instructed. "Yes, mother," Leah replied, her tone flat. "Alexander Montgomery is a serious man. Don't let your father down." That name made her stomach tighten. She'd never met him, only heard the stories the media painted. Cold, ruthless, controlling, and incapable of love. A man like that? She'd rather stay single forever. The car stopped in front of a magnificent glass tower emblazoned with the Montgomery Holdings logo. A valet opened the door. Leah stepped out, her heels striking the marble steps like the thud of a reluctant heartbeat. An assistant led her through a long hallway. Each step echoed sharply in the gleaming, sterile light. Along the walls hung black and white portraits of Montgomery men, each one with eyes sharp enough to cut glass. "Mr. Alexander is waiting for you in the private conference room," the assistant said, opening the door. The large door swung open, and Leah froze. Golden morning light streamed through wide windows. The faint aroma of coffee mingled with polished wood. A man stood with his back to her, crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled neatly, tall and lean. At the sound of the door, he turned around. A half smile, deep ocean blue eyes, a low, composed voice. "Morning, Miss Bennett." We meet again, this time without the bar as background. Leah's world shattered in a single heartbeat. "You?" Her throat went dry. "The stranger from Velvet Hour?" He finished for her, walking toward her at an easy pace. "Not exactly. Turns out I'm the man you've been trying so hard to escape." Leah stepped back, her pulse racing. "No, that's impossible." "Trust me," he chuckled, leaning casually against the desk, arms folded. "I'm just as surprised as you are." Seems fate has a wicked sense of humor. "You're Alexander Montgomery?" "Call me Alex. It sounds friendlier." Leah's breath caught. She remembered that night vividly. The voice, the gaze, the teasing words. "Careful, you're talking to a devil disguised as an angel." "You knew who I was that night?" she asked, trembling. "You toyed with me, and now you're my fiancé?" He raised an eyebrow, a crooked smile playing at his lips, his tone warm but dripping with mischief. "I'm not sure, but I do recall you calling me Alex that night, remember?" In that instant, Leah wished she could turn back time, at least to the moment she decided to step into Velvet Hour. Outside, rain began tapping against the glass again, while inside her, a real storm was rising. Alex took a slow step closer, his voice dropping to a low murmur. "You can see this as fate, or as punishment. Your choice." Leah held her breath, her eyes locking with his, and she knew that from this moment on, her life would never be peaceful again. Ever since that fateful day at Montgomery Holdings, time had crawled for Leah Bennett, each hour an act of quiet torture. She'd lost count of how many times she had tried to convince her parents that this marriage was a mistake, and how many times she was met with cold eyes and the same sharp words, "Love doesn't feed a family, darling." Meanwhile, Alexander Montgomery seemed to savor every moment. He wasn't angry, wasn't impatient. He simply smiled whenever he caught her desperately searching for an escape, the kind of smile a cat wears while watching a helpless mouse struggle. The wedding took place exactly 3 weeks later, in a setting so magnificent that any outsider would have held their breath. Montgomery Castle, a 200-year-old estate, was adorned with white roses and French crystal. Swarovski chandeliers lined the ceiling, scattering light over Leah's hand-embroidered gown. Stunning, yet to her it felt like a diamond-studded chain. Reporters crowded at the gates, camera flashes relentless. The wedding of the century. Bennett's daughter marries the cold wolf of the financial world. Everyone gasped in admiration. Everyone but Leah, who carried a storm inside her chest. When the wedding march began, she walked slowly down the white carpeted aisle. At the altar, Alex stood tall in a perfectly tailored black suit, his tie a deep shade matching his eyes. The light through the stained glass framed him with a glow that was both alluring and dangerous. He smiled as she approached, the kind of smile that made her want to turn and run. "Don't even think about escaping, Leah," he murmured when she reached his side. "These castle walls are higher than your pride." "And probably warmer than your heart," she whispered back, still wearing the graceful smile meant for the cameras. The priest began reciting the vows. Leah heard the words but didn't truly register them. Everything blurred into distant noise, the music, the flashes, the murmurs. "Do you, Alexander Montgomery, take Rosalie Bennett to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do," he replied without hesitation. "Do you, Rosalie Bennett, take Alexander Montgomery?" "I—" Leah paused, drew a deep breath, and forced the words out. "I do." Applause erupted. Cheers filled the air. The flashes flared like lightning. The priest smiled. "You may kiss the bride." Leah froze. Just as she was about to turn away, Alex leaned in, his voice vibrating softly against her ear. "Don't fall asleep in the middle this time." Before she could react, he kissed her. Light, deliberate, laced with meaning. It wasn't love. It wasn't a ceremony. It was a warning. "I control this game, Leah." The crowd roared. Applause, laughter, cameras flashing endlessly. Hours later, headlines spread like wildfire across London. Montgomery's passionate kiss melts the ice bride. After the ceremony, when they retreated to the private room behind the hall, Leah yanked her hand free and glared at him. "You're insufferable." He shrugged, unfastening his cufflinks, a lazy smile curling his lips. "Good thing you've already kissed this insufferable man twice. The first time was an accident. The second was destiny." She shot him a sharp look, turned on her heel, but her ears burned red, and her heart betrayed her with a skipped beat. From the castle's second-floor window, as London rain began to fall, he stood watching her in her white gown disappear down the corridor and murmured, "You can run from everything, Leah, but not from me." Right after the wedding, Leah moved into Montgomery Castle, an estate on the outskirts of London, grand, ancient, and so cold that even footsteps seemed to echo back from another century. From the very first day, she made a vow to herself, "I will not speak to him." Not a single word. Alex had only smiled when he heard her declaration. He didn't argue, didn't explain, but somehow, without saying much, he still managed to drive her absolutely insane. On her first morning there, Leah came down to the dining room and saw the day's newspaper neatly spread out on the table. The front page was them. The headline screamed, "The couple of the century, the kiss that melted all of London." Beneath the photo, Alex had handwritten a note. "You look even more beautiful than in this picture." She immediately crumpled the paper and threw it straight into the trash. When she entered the office, she discovered that he had switched their desks, positioning them directly facing each other. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Improving the view." "This angle lets me see you better." "You're unbelievable." "Charming?" "Thanks." Leah clenched her jaw, stormed off, and swore she wouldn't let this infuriating man make her heartbeat falter again. But he didn't stop there. He made her coffee wrong every morning, claiming, "I mixed up the sugar with the salt." He plastered their wedding photos everywhere. On the fridge, in the gym, even on her vanity mirror. And every night, he just happened to pass by her room as she was reading, only to say, "Good night, Mrs. Montgomery." "I'm not sleeping yet." "I know. I just like hearing you talk." One afternoon, as Leah was watering the flowers in the garden, Alex approached her with a cup of tea in hand. "Don't you have anything better to do?" she asked. "Oh, I do," he replied. "Annoying you daily is a full-time job." She set the watering can down, arms crossed, eyes flashing. "Will you ever stop teasing me?" "No, because when you're angry, you're more alive than any glass of whiskey I've ever had." Leah was speechless. Somehow, amidst all that irritation, her heart skipped an uninvited beat. That night, she went to bed exhausted. Pulling the blanket up, she shut her eyes tight, determined not to think about him. But in her dreams, he was there, sitting in the armchair, that half smile glowing faintly in the lamplight. "I'll stop teasing you," he murmured, "when you finally smile because of me." She jolted awake, heart racing. Moonlight streamed through the window, casting a pale glow over their framed wedding photo on the bedside table. She saw herself in it, smiling beside the man she swore she'd never love. Leah muttered under her breath, half annoyed, half confused. "That infuriating man is actually starting to keep me up at night." You're watching Soul Stories, where every story whispers of love, healing, and hope. Don't forget to subscribe and be a part of our journey. Morning at Montgomery Castle began with the gentle patter of rain and the faint aroma of toasted bread drifting from the marble-tiled kitchen. Leah rarely came downstairs this early, but today she wanted to make her own coffee, just to prove that she could still do something without her perfect husband hovering over her. She was slicing an orange when the small knife slipped from her hand. A thin red line appeared on her finger. "I—" Before she could reach for the first aid kit, Alex's voice came from behind, deep, calm, as if he had been standing there all along. "Let me." He didn't wait for her to refuse. One hand caught her wrist, the other reached for the kit on the shelf. His movements were steady, precise, unhurried. Not a single unnecessary word. Only the warmth of his breath brushing against her skin, surprisingly soft in the cold, damp morning air. He wrapped the bandage around her finger and tied it neatly. "You don't have to pretend to be kind," she said, trying to sound cold. "I'm not pretending," he replied, his eyes still fixed on her cut. "I just like to keep what I've touched intact." The air froze between them. Leah opened her mouth to argue, but her voice caught in her throat. Her cheeks flushed crimson. For the first time, Rosalie Bennett was truly blushing. "Thank you," she murmured awkwardly. "I don't need thanks. Just stay away from knives." "And you should stay away from words." "That's harder." He smiled faintly, stepping back, leaving her standing in the golden kitchen light, heart beating out of rhythm. That afternoon, Leah tidied his study. The room was spacious and meticulously organized. The mahogany desk reflected his disciplined mind. But in one drawer, hidden between piles of company files, she stumbled upon a thick folder of anonymous donation receipts. The donations were for St. Mary's Orphanage, funding care for orphans; Hope Foundation, supporting cancer patients; an elementary school in the suburbs with a handwritten note, for children who need chances, not favors. The donor's name was written simply, A.M. Leah froze, her hand trembling slightly. Alexander Montgomery, the man the press called the cold wolf of the business world, was the one quietly feeding hundreds of children. "Find something interesting?" His voice came from behind her. Leah turned sharply. He stood by the doorframe, his white shirt billowing, hands in pockets, his gaze calm yet deep. "You did all this?" He only shrugged. "Is that a problem? You didn't tell anyone." "You don't want credit." "Why?" "Because I don't need it." She stared at him, a mix of confusion and awe in her eyes. "People say you're ruthless, cold, driven only by money." He gave a faint smile, stepping closer, his voice low and smoky. "Let them talk. I don't have time to explain myself. Those who live honestly don't need to prove they're good." Leah fell silent. Everything she had believed, the rumors, the fear, the judgment, crumbled like sandcastles in the tide. In that moment, she no longer saw a ruthless CEO, but a man quietly doing good where no one was watching. A man misunderstood, yet unwavering in his own way. "So all this time," she whispered, eyes on the papers, "I've been wrong about you?" Alex said nothing. He didn't nod. He didn't deny it. He simply rested his hand on the folder and closed it gently. "If you want to know who I am, don't listen to the world. Listen to your heart." Then he turned and left, leaving Leah standing in the dimly lit study, sunlight spilling through the window, glinting off the white bandage on her finger. She looked at it and smiled faintly without realizing it. A touch of gentleness. That was all it took for the walls around her heart to begin to crack. That night, Leah sat by the window, watching rain fall across the castle roof. Under her breath, she whispered, "If he really is the devil everyone says he is, then I'm afraid I'm starting to fall for that devil." The Savoy Hotel blazed with crystal light that night. Beneath the soaring ceiling, chandeliers cascaded like waterfalls of gold, glinting off champagne glasses and dazzling gowns. It was the annual Montgomery Foundation Charity Gala, the kind of event where London's elite came not only to donate, but to flaunt, gossip, and quietly measure one another's power. Leah entered in a midnight blue gown that hugged her silhouette, her bare shoulders gleaming softly under the chandeliers, her hair twisted into a low bun, her lips tinted crimson. Tonight she was there as the face of the foundation, not as the wife of the man hosting it. "Smile, Leah," Alex murmured beside her as they stepped onto the red carpet. "The press is watching." "Then you smile for both of us," she said dryly. "I have a limit to how long I can fake it. The angrier you get, the cuter you are." She shot him a look, then walked off once they entered the grand hall, full of people, laughter, and prying eyes. She had barely slipped away from the banquet tables when a familiar voice stopped her in her tracks. "Leah?" Her breath caught. 1 second. 2. Then she turned. Ethan Parker. The tailored suit, the soft waves of brown hair, the same gentle blue eyes she once believed in. The man who had made her trust in love, then shattered it to climb higher. "You! What are you doing here?" "I work with the Royal Foundation. They're tonight's partner," he said awkwardly. "I saw your name on the guest list. I had to see you." Leah wanted to walk away, but Ethan spoke quickly. "Leah, I was wrong. I was stupid. I thought I could forget you, but I can't. I want to start over." Her voice turned cold. "Don't say that here." Ethan gently caught her wrist, desperation flickering in his eyes. "I know this marriage is arranged. You don't love him, do you? He's a Montgomery, a man without a heart." "Let go, Ethan." She tried to pull away. Then came a low, steady voice behind her, calm but sharp enough to slice through the noise of the entire ballroom. "Sorry, my wife's not available." Ethan froze. Alexander Montgomery stood there, tall, commanding, dressed in a perfect black tuxedo, his arctic blue eyes glinting like ice. He walked up slowly, placed a hand on Leah's shoulder, then slid it down to her waist, drawing her subtly yet possessively closer. "Her husband's right here." His voice was even, quiet, yet carried the kind of authority that silenced everyone nearby. Ethan stammered, "You're her husband?" "By law, by ring, and by a wedding the whole of London attended," Alex said with a faint cutting smile. "Pick whichever you prefer." "I know it's a loveless marriage." "Ask her if she loves you," Ethan shot back. But Alex didn't ask. He simply tilted his head and kissed her, right there, in the center of the ballroom, under the chandeliers, amid the gasps and the blinding flashes of cameras. The kiss wasn't gentle, it was a claim, a warning, a jealous storm breaking through his polished calm. He kissed her deeply, long enough to silence the room, long enough for her mind to go blank and her heart to lose all rhythm. When he finally pulled back, Leah was breathless, her cheeks flushed. "You're insane," she hissed. Alex's lips hovered close, his voice low and teasing, still brushing against hers. "No, just reminding everyone. My wife isn't single." He slipped an arm around her waist and led her away, greeting guests with the same composed charm, as if nothing had happened. Leah stood dazed, biting her lip, her heart still pounding wildly. Her hand drifted to her lips, still warm, still trembling. She left early that night. In her room, staring into the mirror, she saw her reflection. Anger in her eyes, yes, but something else too. Something nameless. She whispered under her breath, half furious, half shaken. "That infuriating man, he's actually driving me insane." Outside, footsteps stopped at her door. Alex leaned against the wall, one hand in his pocket, eyes half closed as he murmured softly to himself, "Don't look at me like that, Leah, or I won't survive it." In the distance, headlines were already flashing across news sites. "Montgomery's jealous kiss. Has the cold billionaire finally fallen in love? And in the quiet of her room, Leah's heart answered that question with a trembling beat, fearful, uncertain, yet no longer in denial. After that night at the Savoy, Montgomery Castle seemed twice as vast, while the words between them felt cut in half. Leah chose avoidance. Alex chose to appear exactly when avoidance was impossible. In the morning, she woke an hour earlier and took the east corridor down to the kitchen. When she arrived, her favorite blue porcelain cup was already placed beside the kettle, with a folded note inside, "Don't forget breakfast." The handwriting, precise, upright, unmistakably Alex's. She stared at it for 3 seconds, tucked it back into the drawer, but still used that very cup to make her tea. At noon, she escaped to the rose garden to avoid the storm. The gardener had just finished laying out a checkered cloth and set down with a crisp sound a black umbrella and a thin coat. "Mr. Alex's orders, ma'am." Leah scoffed, but 5 minutes later, the rain began. She reluctantly put on the coat and took the umbrella. That feeling of being known too well was annoying but strangely warm. At night, she locked her bedroom door. 5 minutes later, a gentle knock came. "Good night, Mrs. Montgomery." No reply was expected. He walked away. She leaned her back against the door, listening to her own heartbeat. Frustrated, yet oddly calm. They argued in short, sharp lines. "You can kiss me to apologize if you want. Try it and I'll throw you off the balcony." 15th floor, worth the risk. And they searched for each other through quiet gestures. A cup, an umbrella, a scarf, a one-line text, a three-knock rhythm on the door. Rainy afternoon. The London sky hung low like gray silk pressed against the glass ceiling of the study. Leah decided to tidy the secondary office, the one rarely used, filled with old company files. She wasn't planning to pry into Alex's affairs. She simply needed to keep her hands busy so her thoughts wouldn't wander to him. On the third shelf from the bottom sat a worn cloth-covered box without a label. Leah pulled it out, dust rising in the dim light. Inside were several brown envelopes. She opened the top one. A large photograph slipped out, gliding across the mahogany desk before coming to a stop at the edge. Leah froze. The cobblestone courtyard of St. Mary's boarding school. Gray uniforms, ruffled collars, navy ties. A group of children laughing, hair wild in the wind. In the front row, center, a girl with brown hair braided to one side. Eyes red but still smiling. Her knitted sweater had a small sparrow embroidered over the heart. Leah recognized it instantly. It was her. She sat down, fingertips tracing the photo's edge. Memory cracked open like thin ice. The smell of chalk, the recess bell, the damp moss behind the schoolyard. She remembered the shoving, older kids mocking her baby sweater, pushing until she stumbled. Then a boy stepped in, standing between her and them, eyes sharp as flint. "That's enough!" Someone yelled. Someone threw a rock. His sleeve tore. His lip bled. Later, behind the wall, his hand rested gently on her shoulder. "Don't cry." She hadn't cried. She'd unpinned the sparrow badge from her sweater, fastened it onto his collar, and said, "It's for luck." He had looked at her for a long moment, nodded once, and walked away. The next week, he disappeared from school. No one knew his name. The story ended like a film cut too soon. Leah's heart pounded unevenly. Why was this photo here, in his room? She turned the photo over. On the back, in messy black marker, were the words, "Don't cry, I'll protect you." No name, no class, no date, just a lone promise clinging to paper, more stubborn than glue. Her fingertip brushed the faded ink. A strange warmth rose in her throat. If that boy had written it, how did this photo end up here? And more importantly, who had kept it all these years? A faint sound came from the door, soft as rain touching the handle. Leah looked up. Alex stood there. The gray light drew a thin halo around his white shirt. He didn't step in. He didn't say, "Sorry to interrupt," or, "What are you doing?" The usual fillers people use to delay truth. He just looked at the photo in her hand, then at her eyes. His gaze wasn't cold like ice. It was deep, calm, like a lake just after a pebble has fallen in. "This room's dusty," he said quietly, as if to note he'd been there long enough to see. Do you need a mask? No. Leah set the photo down but didn't let go of it. There's an old picture of me in this box. From St. Mary's. Alex's chin dipped almost imperceptibly, a reflex. Is that so? Why is it here? She asked directly. Who kept it? Silence. The pendulum clock ticked. Rain drummed harder on the glass ceiling. Alex took a single step closer, then stopped, leaving a desk length of space between them. He rested his hand on the edge of the table, fingertips grazing the wood, as if testing the reality of the moment. What do you remember about St. Mary's? He asked, his voice low, not probing, but seeking permission to open a sealed drawer of memory. Besides the awful uniforms and the terrible pudding? Leah let out a faint laugh. They've improved the pudding. Her hand touched the tiny sparrow on the girl's sweater in the photo. I remember. A boy. He stood up for me, tore his sleeve, told me not to cry. Alex's breath shifted, just slightly, too subtle for anyone else to notice. What else? He asked. Nothing, Leah said honestly. He disappeared right after. I never got his name. I thought I imagined him. But today, maybe not. Alex glanced at the back of the photo. Only for a second, but long enough for it to hurt if the word struck an old scar. The corner of his mouth lifted. Not the usual arrogant smile, but the kind that comes when something fragile is touched with clean hands. This photo, Leah swallowed, it's mine. But it's here, in your castle. That's strange. This castle holds plenty of strange things, Alex replied softly. Including you. She shot him a look. Don't joke. He didn't answer. His gaze drifted from the photo back to her. If you want to know why it's here, he said slowly, don't ask the files. Ask your memories. What does that mean? Alex didn't reply right away. He stepped half a pace closer. Not enough to startle her, just enough that the scent of rain on his shirt mixed with the smell of old paper. Leah, he said quietly, as if speaking to a secret, do you cry often? No. The answer came too fast. Alex's tone softened. Your ears are red. She touched them instinctively, scolding herself. God, seriously? Outside, the rain eased into a short downpour, then softened again, leaving beads of water strung across the glass like silver threads. Inside, the photo lay still, a witness to a long-buried promise emerging from the dark. My photo, Leah repeated, her voice small, and the words, don't cry, I'll protect you. Who wrote them? Alex looked up. His eyes were so deep she thought she saw a tunnel of time behind them. A boy standing under the sun, torn sleeve, blood on his lip, still smiling defiantly. Who do you think it was? He asked, not as a challenge, but as if he simply wanted to hear her say the name that neither of them had dared to speak until now. London woke beneath a thin veil of mist that blurred the slate rooftops. Leah rose earlier than usual, not because she wanted to, but because the photo of St. Mary's in the side office had been looping in her mind like a refrain. She brewed her tea, staring at a tiny crack on her blue porcelain cup, and laughed softly. How strange that something so small could tug at a memory more than 10 years old. Don't cry, I'll protect you. Those clumsy words kept flashing through her mind like the scrolling ticker beneath London's weather forecast. Showers, mild sun, cloudy skies, and a boy who disappeared after summer break. She hadn't told Alex about the photograph, nor asked why it was there. Just a little more time, she told herself. She wanted to piece things together first, so that when she asked, her question wouldn't sound like weakness. She checked her watch. 10:30. She was scheduled to visit the St. Mary's Foundation to review a scholarship proposal. She slipped into a gray linen dress, beige trench coat, hair in a low bun, and lips barely tinted. The mirror reflected a calm, clear gaze, but deep inside, a small, quiet flame had already been lit. The foundation's building sat on an old brick street, its glass doors reflecting the sky like a rain-scratched mirror. Leah stepped out of the car and told the driver to wait at the corner. The chime over the door rang softly as she entered. The hallway smelled faintly of wood and fresh paper. And there, standing by the entrance, Alex. He was leaning slightly, speaking with a woman, Tall, with a blonde pixie cut, wearing a gray trench coat, her smile practiced in the way of someone used to being photographed. Leah recognized her instantly from the company's old perfume ads. Clara, once a model, the muse for a fragrance that had once driven London mad. Alex looked unusually gentle. Clara laughed lightly, brushing his elbow as she spoke. Noon sunlight cut through the clouds, spreading a bright stripe across their shoulders. The kind of perfect shot paparazzi would kill for. Leah stopped for half a second, then forced herself forward. Her heels tapped slowly against the wooden floor. Alex heard and turned. His eyes met hers, steady, alert, like a jazz musician catching the rhythm mid-improv. "Leah," he said softly, lowering his tone, "you're right on time." Clara turned, smiling politely. "Hello, Leah. I've heard so much about you. I was just dropping off." She lifted a folder. "Some charity photos I took for the foundation." Leah's hand tightened around her bag strap. She smiled with perfect grace. "Thank you for supporting the foundation." Then she looked at Alex and dropped her words like a pebble into still water. "Just to see how far the ripples went." "Busy? Catching up with an old flame?" Alex's lips curved. "Are you jealous?" "No," Leah said, chin up. "Not my business." He arched a brow. "You're lying." "I am not." But Alex had already stepped closer. His fingertips brushed the shell of her ear. So lightly, yet it felt like electricity. She hated that her body betrayed her. Hated how her ears turned red. How her heart thudded loud enough for him to hear. "When you lie," he murmured, "your ears turn pink." Clara caught the tension instantly, stepping back with quiet tact. "I'll let you two handle business," she said, placing the folder on the desk. "See you around." The glass door clicked shut, leaving the space where Clara had stood, and the space between Leah and Alex. Leah wanted to step back, but her heel caught the edge of the rug. He didn't move closer, just half a step apart, close enough that the scent of soap from his collar mingled with the trace of rain in her hair. "Alex," she said evenly, "you have a lot of old friends." "True," he said, eyes steady on hers, "but only one wife." "That's not an answer." "You're right," he nodded. "It's a reminder." "A reminder of what?" "That I'm trying to behave," he said softly. "But it's hard when the woman I love blushes like that." The last words hit her like a misplaced chord in a symphony. Leah opened her mouth, then forgot what to say. His smile flickered, not smug, but sincere. She wanted to be angry, but the phrase, "the woman I love," sat there, making her heart tremble. "Don't say things like that," she managed. "Not here. Not at the foundation." "Then," he said, shifting smoothly, one hand circling her waist in a single, wind-like motion, "I'll stop talking." And he kissed her. The third kiss came quietly, but hit like a tide crashing against stone. No restraint, no pretense. He pulled her close, letting her body understand before her mind could protest. Her back pressed against the cool glass door. His warmth flooded through the gap between their lips. Gentle at first, then deeper, as if unlocking a door long sealed. The world tilted slightly. She set her hands on his shoulders to push him away, but instead her fingers tightened. Damn it. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it echo against the glass. A group of volunteers passed down the hall, their voices fading. No one saw them. Time stretched, sweet and dangerous, like pulled sugar. Leah shivered, not from the cold. When he finally pulled back, their foreheads stayed touching, breath fogging the glass between them. Alex looked at her, his blue eyes no longer cold. Clear, bright, sunlit. "Now it's fair," he whispered. 3 kisses, 3 lies." "What lies?" Leah snapped, weakly, unlike the sharp tone she'd mastered since the Savoy. He traced a finger along her collarbone. "First, you said that night was running away, but it was choosing. Second, you called our wedding a cage, but you still held my hand at the altar. Willingly. Third," he smiled against her lips, "you said it's not my business." And your ears turned red. Leah pushed him back just enough to breathe, clinging to distance like a safety harness. "You're getting too confident." "I'm not confident," he said, straightening his cuff, voice calm again. I just remember. Remember what? You, the past few days. For a heartbeat, Leah wanted to laugh, but she didn't. She clung to the only defense left. You should focus on work. Someone's waiting for you out there. She glanced toward the door. The sunlight had shifted, leaving a cup-shaped glow on the carpet. Yes, Alex nodded, but today's schedule includes kissing my wife. Just check that box. You're shameless. With a marriage certificate, he said, deadpan. Leah turned away and slipped into a small meeting room. She poured herself a glass of water. In the reflection of the cabinet door, her cheeks were still flushed. She hated her cheeks, and she hated the man who made them that way. By evening, the sky darkened with heavy clouds. Rain gathered like spilled ink. Leah finished her reports and signed the last page. When she stepped into the hallway, it was empty. Only the ticking of the clock. Alex had already left. A staff member mentioned he had a meeting near the docks and would drive himself back. A strange hollow feeling rose in her chest. Without him, the air felt half lighter and half heavier. She typed a message, "Drive safely," then deleted it. Typed again, "Don't speed like last time." Deleted. Finally, she sent a short, awkward text. "It's raining." Delivered. No reply. Leah smiled faintly to herself. A useless message. But at least she'd sent it. She told the driver to go slowly. Rain drummed against the windows like impatient fingers. Halfway home, the car stopped at a red light. The radio newscaster's calm voice cut through the hum. A multi-vehicle collision has just occurred along the riverside near the docks. Emergency services are on site. Leah's heart seized. "Turn it up," she said sharply. The driver twisted the knob. A black Aston Martin lost control. She didn't hear the rest. Her phone vibrated violently. A new message flashed across the screen. From the hospital, patient, Alexander Montgomery, car accident, in emergency care, immediate family contact requested. The only sound left was her own breathing. Everything else, headlights, sirens, the rain-streaked city, blurred into noise. Her fingers fumbled the phone 3 times before she managed to dial the hotline. The operator's voice, "Please hold," felt like a noose tightening around her throat. "To the docks," she ordered the driver, her voice breaking. "As fast as you can." The car swerved. Leah gripped the seatbelt, her mind overflowing with everything she couldn't control. His crooked smile at velvet hour, his teasing voice at the wedding. "Don't fall asleep this time." His hand bandaging her cut finger that morning. The third kiss at the foundation's door. She found herself whispering, unsure if it was sound or just breath. Don't leave, Alex." Rain whipped across the hood. Headlights sliced through the downpour. "I haven't even told you yet." Her throat burned like she'd swallowed a glass of straight whiskey. "That I love you." The confession fell into the dim cabin of the car, where only the rain and her heart knew it had just become the truth. At night, St. George's Hospital smelled of antiseptic and echoed with the steady pulse of heart monitors, a lullaby too weak to soothe. Down the long hallway, the fluorescent lights wrapped a pale haze over everything, turning each footstep into a hollow sound. Leah sat slumped in a chair, fingers interlocked, knuckles white. It had been 2 days. 2 days since the black Aston Martin had spun out in the rain. 2 days since she had run to the docks, frozen amid flashing blue and red lights, the stench of gasoline, and frantic shouts. 2 days since they'd wheeled Alex past her on a stretcher, rain and blood streaking his face, black lashes stuck together, a small cut at the corner of his mouth, the exact corner her lips had brushed that very morning. "Family?" a nurse had asked. "Wife," Leah rasped, her voice hollow, like the sound of water being drained. She didn't remember what papers she'd signed, only that the pen trembled and the name Rosalie Montgomery kept blurring and sharpening before her eyes. The doctor had said soft tissue injury, mild concussion, not life-threatening. But he hadn't woken up. His brain needed to sleep. Tubes and sensors covered him. And for Leah, silence was the most terrifying sound of all. She sat beside his bed, gripping his hand. Large, warm, the bones firm, her fingers disappearing inside his. She was angry at him for driving alone in the storm. Angry at herself for texting, "It's raining" instead of "drive safe." Angry even at the things that couldn't be blamed. The London rain, the slick corners, the radio forecast. "You're always strong, always teasing me," Leah whispered, eyes burning. "So why are you silent now?" No answer. Only the steady beep of the monitor. She bowed her head. A tear slipped down onto the back of his hand, vanishing like rain on a windshield. She talked to him about everything and nothing, afraid of quiet. When her voice went hoarse, she leaned her head against the bed, still holding his hand, and drifted into a half-sleep like a child guarding a lamp. The door opened softly. Her mother walked in with a shawl and a small box of pastries. "Eat something, dear." "I'm not hungry." "You won't last if you don't eat." Her mother squeezed her shoulder gently. "He'll be fine. That boy's as stubborn as you." Leah let out a weak chuckle. "He's much more stubborn." She took the shawl, wrapped it around her neck, but didn't let go of his hand. The night stretched endlessly. Outside, London drowned in rain and lamplight, a city half awake, half dreaming. By the second morning, the doctor smiled. "He's improving. Keep talking to him. They can still hear, even when they can't respond." Leah nodded and sat in her usual spot. In that stillness, she realized something that hurt. If yesterday had been the last day, had she said enough? Kissed him enough? Believed in him enough? She took a deep breath, gazing at his quiet face. Long lashes shadowing his eyes, straight nose, lips raw where they'd been scraped. A faint bruise along his cheekbone looked like a smear of violet ink. This was the man she'd once wanted to run from. And now if he so much as stirred, she would cry from relief. "Alex," she whispered, afraid to disturb the air. "Can you hear me? I'm I'm not good with big words, but last night I was so scared I couldn't breathe." She let out a shaky laugh. "I hate you for making me that scared." The heart monitor kept its patient's rhythm. "I also hate how you see right through me," she continued, tears welling. "The way you always say, 'Your ears are red,' every time I lie. You're unbearable." Her voice cracked. "But if you open your eyes, I swear I won't. I won't lie again." She bent down and pressed her lips to his bandaged knuckle. "Do you hear me?" A pause, then a whisper, soft as wind. "If I say I was only sleeping to dream of you," a rough voice murmured, "will you forgive me?" Leah froze. Her heart slammed against her ribs. You're awake?" Alex blinked. The hospital light flickered in his tired blue eyes. He tried to smile, crooked because of the split lip. "I dreamt you were arguing with me. Some nightmare, huh?" Her tears fell at the most inconvenient moment, as always. She wiped them away, half angry, half shaken. "Don't you dare joke! Right now!" "When then?" He closed his eyes for a beat, then opened them, searching for her hand. She grabbed his instantly, too tightly. He winced. "Easy, wife," he teased weakly. "I just dodged death." "Don't!" Leah bit her lip. "The doctor said you're fine, but you were unconscious for 2 days. Do you know how many horrible endings I imagined?" Alex looked at her silently, as though each breath was an apology. After a moment, his voice came hoarse. "I heard everything." "Heard what?" "When you talked about the sparrow, when you cursed the London rain, and," he blinked slowly, lashes trembling, "when you said you loved me." Leah flushed instantly, defense reflex snapping up like a piano lid. "You misheard." His lips curved, tired but unmistakably amused. "Your ears are red." She laughed through her tears, sunlight breaking through clouds. She wanted to scold him, to deny it, but nothing made sense anymore. Leaning forward, she rested her forehead against his, the cool of his skin mixing with the warmth of her breath. "You're impossible," she said, laughing and crying all at once. "Yeah," he whispered, voice rough but sure, "and you love me for it." Something in the room shifted, as if someone had changed the background music. The monitor kept ticking, but the rhythm she heard most clearly was her own heartbeat. Leah lowered her head and kissed the cut at the corner of his mouth. "Does it hurt?" "It does." He smiled faintly. "But it's worth it." It'll hurt more if you ever drive in the rain again, she warned softly, pulling the blanket up to his chest, her hand lingering on his collarbone. If you do, I'll love me twice as much, he teased. She exhaled sharply, unable to lie. I'll tie you to the driver's seat and take the wheel myself. Sounds tempting. He tried to laugh, coughed instead, the motion tugging at his ribs. Stop laughing, she scolded, alarmed. Then stop laughing and crying at the same time, he murmured. I'm too tired to keep up. It's your fault. Yeah, my fault, he turned slightly, finding a position that caused him less pain. I'm sorry. For what? For scaring you. He met her eyes. No teasing now, no shield. I'm used to doing everything alone. I used to think I could handle it all. Used to not telling anyone. I forgot that since our wedding, I'm not alone anymore. Leah squeezed his hand. Right. Worse, you've got a wife who argues. I like that. You're sick. I'm literally in a hospital. The small joke settled like a light blanket. Leah leaned her head against the edge of his bed, still holding his hand. She told him about her father wanting to send flowers, her mother wanting to cook porridge, the press crowding the hospital gates. Alex frowned. Don't let them bother you. This time, Leah whispered, let me protect you. Marriage contract, remember? Division of labor. You save the world, I save you. He watched her for a long time, as if framing the moment in his mind. Mrs. Montgomery, messy hair, tearful eyes unwavering. Do you know what I thought of first when I woke up? He asked. What? That if I lost you, I wouldn't know what to do next. He smiled faintly, shaking his head. Thankfully, I don't have to find out. Don't say things like that. Leah brushed her thumb over the back of his hand, where her tear had dried to a faint mark. I'm right here. I know. He closed his eyes briefly as if testing sleep. Stay tonight. I've been here 2 nights already. Stay another. Okay. The door opened. A nurse entered, checked his vitals, and adjusted the IV. The doctor will reassess in the morning. He's been talking quite a bit. Needs rest now. She smiled at Leah. You should rest too. I'm fine. Leah tucked the blanket tighter around him, pulling her chair closer. I'll sleep here. The lights dimmed. In the soft gold glow, Alex's face eased. No longer strained, his lips no longer pale. His breathing grew deep, even. Leah watched each inhale and exhale as if reciting a silent prayer of thanks. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the city glistening under streetlights. Alex, she whispered, just to make sure he could still hear. There's something I need to say while you're awake. I love you. He didn't open his eyes, but the corner of his mouth curved. I know. Arrogant. Officially certified, he murmured, voice faint but teasing intact. Marriage license. Red stamp. Go to sleep. Sleeping to keep dreaming of you. Alex, Leah laughed, another tear slipping free. Don't dream of us fighting again. Can't promise. Silence settled softly. The heart monitor hummed its steady rhythm. Leah closed her eyes, still holding his hand as if sealed by glue. For once, she'd said the right words at the right time. Nothing left unsaid. Alex's fingers tightened slightly around hers, somewhere between dream and wakefulness. He opened his eyes just a slit, his voice low and raspy, barely audible above the machines. Checkmate, Leah. You're the one wound I never want to heal. A London afternoon after the rain. Sky like a freshly washed window, sunlight spilling gold across the dark rooftops. It had been a week since Alex left the hospital. The bruises on his cheek had faded. The cut at the corner of his lip was now a soft pink line. He drove slowly, left hand on the wheel, right hand loosely intertwined with Leah's on the armrest. A new habit, light but firm, as if letting go might cause something to drift away forever. Where are we going? Leah asked for the third time, trying to sound playful to hide the nervous flutter in her chest. To see someone from the past, he said. Who? She squinted suspiciously. A tree. She laughed, a bright sound like a mischievous ray of sun. You almost died, Alex. Don't start being poetic now. I'm serious, he replied, lips curling faintly. An old tree, older than your patience. The car turned onto a cobblestone road, flanked by mossy brick walls. St. Mary's came into view, the black iron gates slightly ajar, the courtyard glistening with rain, the air carrying the scent of chalk and wet leaves, like a drawer opened after years. Leah fell silent. Her heart did a small somersault, the same ache she'd felt the first time she saw that photograph in the side office. Alex didn't take her to the main courtyard. He led her around the back, past rows of classrooms, to a quiet corner where the wind smelled of grass and thyme. There stood an old oak tree, tall and gnarled, its bark carved with childish graffiti, names, dates, crooked hearts, scattered letters. Hey there, Alex said softly, as if greeting an old friend. I brought her back. Leah stared at the oak. Her hand slipped from his and reached out, fingers brushing the rough bark. Memory clicked open. The scrape of boys' shoes on stone, laughter mocking her sparrow-printed shirt, a boy charging in like a slingshot, blood at his lip, torn sleeve, eyes so bright they made her believe again. Alex, she turned, voice trembling. Why? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled a small navy velvet box from his coat pocket. Inside lay a delicate silver chain, its pendant a simple engraved sparrow wing. No jewels, no extravagance, just the polished glow of something once worn long and kept longer. He lifted it up. Sunlight skimmed across the silver, drawing a thin gleam on his wrist. Do you recognize this? He asked quietly. Leah froze, breath catching. She touched it lightly, her fingers shaking before curling into a smile she couldn't hide. It looks like the necklace I once gave a friend. Not like it, Alex said, eyes steady on hers. It is. The courtyard stilled, like a frame locked in place. Leah stood frozen as the puzzle pieces snapped together. The St. Mary's photo, the note, "Don't cry, I'll protect you," the torn shirt, the dark eyes, the hand on her shoulder, and the day she'd pinned her sparrow brooch to his collar, joking that it was a charm to heal wounds. She looked up. Alex's gaze met hers. No teasing, no pretense, only truth, bare and simple. 15 years ago, he said slowly, a little girl was bullied behind St. Mary's. I defended her, got hurt, and she gave me this necklace to heal. Then I left for boarding school overseas. But I kept it, hoping someday I'd see her again. He smiled faintly. That girl was you. Leah's tears fell, not in sobs, but quietly, like raindrops sliding from leaves after a breeze. She covered her mouth, then dropped her hand and stepped closer. You remembered every detail, she whispered, voice cracking like glass. How could I forget? His tone deepened, roughened by warmth. You were the first proof that someone in this world was worth protecting. She almost laughed at how that sounded. Too honest, too precise. But instead she cried harder. When did you recognize me? She asked, though she already sensed the answer. The night at the bar, he said. Velvet hour. You tapped your spoon against the glass 4 times before drinking, just like you used to count to 4 to stop shaking. You bit your lip and lied, and your ears turned red. His lips curved. That was all it took. Leah shivered as though the air itself had tuned to the right key. I kept feeling you were familiar, she murmured, but I didn't dare believe. That fate was just waiting for me to notice. Alex moved behind her, lifting the chain. May I? He asked quietly. She nodded. Her hair slid like water between his fingers as he clasped the necklace around her neck. The silver pendant brushed her skin, cool at first, then warm, absorbing her heartbeat in his touch. He leaned close, his breath grazing the ear that had betrayed her so many times. This time, he whispered, every word perfectly struck, I'm not just protecting you. I love you. Leah closed her eyes. A smile bloomed through her tears, spreading like sunlight through thinning clouds. If this is fate, she said, turning to face him, then I don't want to escape it anymore. They embraced beneath the old oak. No fiery kiss. Just one slow, grateful one. In the distance, children's laughter echoed across the courtyard. The chapel bell rang softly. A few dry leaves drifted past, brushing the silver pendant before dissolving into light. Keep it, Alex said when they parted, fingers tracing the charm. I've held it for 15 years. It's your turn now. But, Leah blinked, wiping her eyes. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I wanted you to remember with your heart first, he said. Not through a story I told? He paused, eyes on the oak. I was afraid you'd think it was some cheap romance I made up to manipulate you. I hated that idea. So, I waited. Waited for what? For you to touch the photo, he smiled, and blush. Leah laughed through her tears. You really are a professional at catching my slip-ups. I just take notes on the things that keep me alive, he said. Like how you tap 4 beats, how you hold an umbrella in your left hand, even though you're right-handed, how you tie your hair low when you're sad, and how you say not related whenever something clearly is, and your ears go red. Enough, she interrupted, pushing a hand against his chest. I surrender. No, he corrected gently, placing his hand over hers. I surrendered. Back at the hospital. He tilted forward, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You're the one wound I don't ever want to heal. That sounds dangerous, she murmured, smiling through her breath. It is, he nodded. I'm addicted. They sat at the roots of the oak, shoulders touching. Leah turned the silver sparrow wing in her palm, seeing the fine scratches etched by time, a living map connecting past to present. She thought of the sparrow girl, the boy with the torn shirt, the nameless years between, and that rainy night at Velvet Hour. Proof that fate doesn't arrange by accident, but with precision. Alex, she said after a quiet moment, do you think, if I hadn't walked into that bar, we would still have met? Yes, he said without hesitation, because I've been looking for you long enough. With what? She asked. With everything I had, he shrugged lightly, and by never letting go of this chain. Leah smiled, resting her head on his shoulder, eyes closed as sunlight brushed her lashes. Thank you for not letting go. The keeper of a promise, he said, never lets go. And the one being protected? She kisses the keeper, he said. Too serious, she teased, pulling his collar down for a kiss. He laughed against her lips. We should add that as a clause. Shut up, she whispered, biting his lip lightly, smiling. Certified husband. The sun drifted slowly through the branches. By the time they left St. Mary's, the sky had turned a soft shade of violet blue. On the drive back, Leah lowered the window, letting the wind comb through her hair. London glowed like a river of stars. Clock towers, bridges, the Thames shimmering below. In the rearview mirror, the silver pendant around her neck caught a sharp glint of light. A perfect circle of fate finally closed and quietly reopened. That glint streaked through the night like a silent promise, one last secret still waiting, hidden deep within the blue eyes of the man who had just said, I love you.